Ladies and gentlemen, today we take our production value to new heights with the addition of a green screen. I've mostly been using this lately to read off notifications on Twitch. Speaking of which, you should follow me, twitch.tv/CaptainSparklez. But today, we'll be using it to do this and showcase some optical illusions in Minecraft. So, without further ado, this video is brought to you by our sponsor, the like button. Check it out, and let's check out some optical illusions and impossible objects. We'll start off with a simple one for thing number one. I don't know whether to call it an illusion or an impossible object. I guess we get a mix of both in this video. I think this would be called a Penrose rectangle. There's such thing as a Penrose triangle, which we'll actually get to later, and this follows the same principle, so we'll call it that. Let's take a look. The thing I love about these is that you look at it at first glance, nothing seems wrong, and then you think about it for another second, you're like, wait, no, the face is, no, it shouldn't loop like that. So what we'll do here for each of these is we'll take a look at it. Obviously, it's very dependent upon the location that I'm viewing it. And then we'll move closer and we'll break the whole thing down. So how is that done? Pretty simple, right? Just like this. Obviously, that is an impossible thing to do as one continuous solid object. So you just have to view it from the proper angle. We go back to that. Now, the one issue that we face in Minecraft is that because it takes place in three-dimensional space and every block is a fixed 1 by 1 by 1 size, as we get a little bit closer, the edge, that block on top, right there, it becomes bigger than the block on the bottom, and that's why I was viewing it from further away. Now, in an illustration, you don't have that limitation. You can gradually shrink this top edge so that this block here matches the size of these blocks, and you don't run into the problem. In Minecraft, that's its only shortcoming, is you can't force that because the blocks are the size they are, and there's nothing I can do to taper it off in order to match faces. So that's why most of these will be viewing it first from further away in order to make that as unnoticeable as we possibly can. Nice and simple to start off with. Let's move to the next one. So this one is more of a traditional optical illusion. There's no particular angle that I need to view it at. It just is what it is. And I really hate these because it shows the limitations of how stupid my brain is, and everyone's brain for that matter, because we all see the same thing here, which is that if you just zone out and focus on this thing, you start seeing gray dots appearing in the intersections between like the black squares and the white lines. And they aren't there. It's all the same wool. No gray wool, it's white wool all the way through. It doesn't change, it's the same blocks, but sure enough, your brain is like, oh yeah, there's some gray in there that has to fill in. I'm sure you've all seen this illusion before, but you can recreate it using black concrete, and white wool is the whitest of the blocks. White concrete's a little bit on the gray side. You want the biggest contrast you can fetch, I think, in order to make this effect as dramatic as possible. And it's just frustrating. Why does it do this? There's no gray dots, they don't exist. My brain is making them up, and so is yours. Someone in the comments is gonna be like, oh no, my brain is on another higher level. I've transcended the ability to fall for optical illusions. I don't see the gray. You see the gray. We'll do a little back and forth here between the impossible objects and the more traditional illusions. We'll call this the impossible archway, because I don't know what else to call it. Like the Penrose rectangle, you take a look at this thing at first, and nothing looks immediately wrong, and then you think about it for a second, you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't work. Now I should say, a lot of these are heavily dependent upon having smooth lighting disabled. Let me turn it on for a second. All of a sudden you realize, okay, there's some occlusion around that block right there, which means it must actually be in contact with the purple. And then we go ahead and drop down and get closer, and oh, it's a little floaty, is it now? So these aren't actually in contact with the purple right there, and instead they're just made to look it. And obviously, once again, the shortcoming that you run into, which you may have noticed, is that is slightly smaller than that, showing that this is much closer to us in the foreground, even though it appears to make contact with the purple base at about the same location. These, on the other hand, appear to be the same size. The perspective works there. But if you were illustrating it, obviously, you'd be able to take this front bit here, and you'd be able to make it the same size as the back bit so that it would look completely in place. It's actually even better in the illustrated form because you have it so that each arch is connected to the corners of the base that it's on, but unfortunately, due to the constraints of Minecraft's three-dimensional space, you can't quite reset that up, as I was trying to do as I was creating this one here. This one here, I was debating about it after I built it, but I still think you kind of get the effect from it, just not quite as well as you would in the actual illustration of the illusion. However, I think this one actually benefits from smooth lighting, so that's why I decided to do this one next while we still had it on. The idea that we have here is that the color of they're not really circles, but the circles, you get the idea of what I'm talking about. The color of the circles underneath the pattern of the red, green, and blue lines, it's identical. But because of the red, green, and blue lines and choosing which one still remains over top of the circle, it changes how you perceive the color of the red sand underneath, despite the fact that at the end of the day, it's still all just red sand there. Your brain starts to blend the green, it starts to blend the blue, it starts to blend the red, such that it doesn't exactly look like the color that's below it is identical in all of them, unless you just isolate one, you look really closely, or you eyedropper it. And there are a lot of illusions that sort of follow this principle as far as changing the lighting around a particular area of an image, and it makes it look like a color in that area is different, even though it's identical to the color in another more brightly lit area. Just red sand there. Still just red sand there, but the further you back out from the entire thing as a whole, and having the shadowing from the smooth lighting here, I think helps add a bit. And in the actual image of this online, it's a three-dimensional orange sphere behind the stripes, and so that helps kind of cause the colors to blend in a little bit more. But anyway, if you just kind of zone out on it, it really looks like that's kind of a darker orange in there, and then it's more blue over there, obviously more green tinted on the ones that have the green lines still around them. So not as dramatic as the actual image itself, but still I think you're able to represent it in Minecraft. So worth including. This one here is another classic, and it's another one where it makes me really angry that my brain doesn't work properly and see things the way that they actually are. Obviously, these are all straight gray lines, okay? It's Minecraft. It'd be really obvious to tell if it wasn't just a straight row of blocks across. Yet, when you look at the whole thing, and the effect is even more pronounced the further back you're looking at it from, they look like they're slanting in opposite directions due to the offsets of the black and white squares, but it's straight across. And it's really annoying. Like, if you look at a small subsection, obviously it's all lined up. These are straight lines. But then you zoom out further, and your brain starts getting all confused and starts slanting them in different directions. And you can obviously find images of this online that pronounce the effect even more with like bigger grids or different proportions here. But this is a really simple one to recreate, and Minecraft doesn't require any forced perspective or smooth lighting on or off or anything like that. You can just view it and be angry at your brain. Alrighty, folks, we got ourselves a classic here. The MC Escher staircase. I'm sure you've all seen it before, but maybe you haven't seen it in Minecraft. How does the staircase just infinitely go up or infinitely go down, depending upon which direction you're walking it? It'd be a really, really good exercise machine, though. Can you imagine? You just kept walking up actual stairs over and over, because no matter how good the machine is, if you're on like some kind of Stairmaster thing, it's never going to be quite as good as actually walking up real stairs. You might sort of, when I'm zoomed in, be able to see where the illusion starts to break down, and this is one where smooth lighting off benefits it greatly. Even so, I think despite the fact that you might, if you look closely, be able to spot where it ends and begins, I still think it's able to get across the effect. And having the different size stairs ended up being kind of important to make the whole thing work. And you notice in the original images of these things, the illustrations, that they have kind of different sizes depending upon which stair path it is and how many stairs are on it. And in making it, it turns out that's actually kind of important to it. So obviously it's an impossible thing. You can't actually have the stairs permanently going up. So the way we have it here is I just tried to use the angle, the perspective, obviously, and the further away, the less significant the size difference is going to be between these blocks closest to me and these blocks down here. So I just tried to line it up so that the perspective would make it seem like this right here is blending into that step down there. So that step isn't actually visible. I just used that for alignment. Now it looks way bigger and it really doesn't fit in. So that's why you got to move further and further away. And I guess as you approach an infinite distance, then the sizes would look imperceptibly different and it would work pretty great. This is up against the ground. That's why I turned smooth lighting off. I just had the sides here all similarly sized in height so that it looks like the entire thing is sort of just on the ground. And there you go. This is another really annoying one because it just exposes the limitations of how we perceive things. We have this, I don't know if you'd call it a grid pattern or not. If you were to just look right at the center, right at this black dot down here, and you try to count how many black dots there are without moving your eyes, you won't be able to. You'll probably say 7. But that's because your brain can't see the ones that are over in the corners. Over there and over there, they just don't exist anymore. It's like it averages out the colors and the pattern and how you see them, and those dots just go away. So maybe if you're looking at the center, you see this, see the center one, that one, that one, that one, that one, those two. But beyond that, those ones, nope, they don't exist at all. And doing this here in Minecraft, it doesn't even execute it as well as a purpose-drawn illustration of it, where you might only see like 2 of the dots at once and there are 12 on the entire thing. Here there are 11, and I tried to space them out fairly evenly in such a way that really is frustrating. It just makes you think, what if you're driving and there are certain objects or hazards in the road that are spaced like this, and your brain just cancels them out and they don't exist anymore, and you don't even see that they're there until they're too late. You have to move your eyes around in order to focus on a certain subset of the dots closest to where you're looking, and then you can see those, but then the others fade away at other parts of the grid. It's very annoying. On that very disappointing note, we'll move on to our final impossible object. Near the beginning of the video, I mentioned something called a Penrose triangle, and you won't believe what I saved for last here. I think this one actually took the longest to set up of all the different illusions and impossible objects, and I think it turned out pretty well. So I'm not gonna zoom in on this one. It kind of gives it away a little bit when I do, but still it looks like a waterfall that's flowing down and then looping back on itself infinitely, only to flow down again, which is kind of impossible, right? Yeah, I could have made it source blocks all the way around, but I figured the flowing water made it look a little bit more dynamic, even if it's, flowing in different directions. What can you do? Minecraft, the 8-block flow limit, it means I can't, if it's all level with each other, make it flow all the way from one side to the other. But still, I don't think it breaks the illusion. I think it turned out pretty well. You can probably figure out what's going on. I'll zoom and then you're like, wait a minute, texture's there a little bigger than the textures over there. All right, I see it. But otherwise, when you zoom out, you don't really perceive that difference in the size of the texture, so that you can see what's foreground and what's background, and it lines up. But see, this is 3 blocks wide of water right here, and that's only 2 blocks wide. Whether or not you caught that, it blends in. It blends right in there. Okay, so let's change the perspective on it here. The back grass that was surrounding the waterfall was obviously more in the background at a lower level. I wish I could have had it be like flowing water in one direction all the way, but if I had stepped this down in order to achieve that, it would have also just probably made it not look as good. Turned out okay. Thought it turned out okay. Hopefully you enjoyed it. It actually, the illusion stands better here than the impossible staircase, I think. I think that the dimensions actually match up pretty nicely here, just because of the texture of the grass kind of being hard to perceive the different sizing in between the foreground and the background. Anyway, there you have it. Those are the illusions and impossible objects and stuff that I put together here for you. Hopefully you liked it. Once again, check out our sponsor, the like button located right below the video. And yeah, it's a pretty cool sponsor. Also subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. Hit the bell button, even if you already are. That way you'll get all the videos and stuff. Thanks so much for tuning in. Appreciate it. And I'll catch you next time. Oh, wait, there's actually one more illusion. I can't believe I almost forgot it. because it's kind of my favorite one. You might notice a bunch of lines scattered all over the place right now, kind of like a modern art piece or something. But if you view it from just the right position, you might be able to notice.